Is this? I'm live. Hello, everyone. uh, yes, Craig, you poor things. It sounds appalling up there. I got out of the cellar. I got out of the vineyard. I was having trouble with my internet. I'm so disorganized, but I have wine glass. I have decanter. I have bottle. I breathe. I wish I was in a vat, Zach and Jack. It's so hot. And we got a little bit of rain yesterday, day before. Can't remember now. All the days are the same. Kay is in Canberra. Hi. Car rally. Fantastic. Good work. Almond cashew and Brazil nut butter. Oh, well, the sourdough will be nice anyway. I'm not sure if the nut butter will work with the Pinot Noir, but who knows? Still part of the excitement. Nareem, it's a beautiful autumn day here at Moorooduc. It's a little bit steamy. A little bit. Angela, hi. Oh, yum. 2019 Devil Ben Pinot. Perfect. Delicious duck ragu lasagna. Oh, that's awesome. Lovely to see you. We've missed you. I've got things binging. Oh, Karen, that sounds nice. Pork and mushroom pie thing. I think you're asking me a question. I'll check in a minute. Hello, Cotty and John. How you going? Paul and Ros, g'day. James, hello. Have you guys managed to avoid getting drowned up there? It sounds really, really tough up in the north of the country at the moment, or the sort of middle of the country, actually, Brisbane and Sydney and in-betweens. Hang in there. At least we have Pinot on a Thursday night, I think. I'm over the humidity too, Cotty. It's not, I don't live on the Mornington Peninsula to have to put up with humidity. It's against my religion or something. Oh, Polly, the dogs haven't been for a walk yet, so it's quite rowdy here. Karen, oh, that looks delicious. Hello, Michael, Flodsville in Queensland. Are you okay? Is your house okay? I just, watching the news, it's just, I don't know how much, more we can take with all of this, scary news. But anyway, this is not the James Aldray in the house. I know, 2.7 metres through his house. I know. I've got friends who were like up in the middle of the night moving furniture up into the roof and then just got completely flooded. So it sounds like it's different wherever you happen to be. Horrendous. Hello, Sarah, and all the tricks. Good to see you. Right. I've got lots of excitement for today. First of all, we're having a competition, unannounced, I know, but we haven't had a competition for a while, and I had something to give away. So I thought, oh, well, I'm not just going to give it away for the sake of it. You have to do some work. So the usual tricks are required. I would like a picture of your wine in a wine glass with your snacks and your computer or television or iPad or telephone, whatever you're watching me on. I want to see a picture of my face looking gorgeous in the background, and I want you to send it to me. And whoever sends me the best, let's say, well, I've only got a couple to give away, so best two pictures gets a T-shirt. And these are very rare and special T-shirts. I had a Christmas round of hoodies printed because I had a few people who'd missed out on them in the first round. So we did them. I told you about that at the time. I'm not sure if you weren't on the tasting when I heard you missed out again. Well, I'm sorry. I do actually have a couple of spare hoodies. So if you are after a hoodie, then message me after the session. You know how to get me, kate@moorooducestate.com.au. I feel like I'm doing telemarketing now. It's ridiculous. Anyway, g'day, Shell. You got here just in time because we're having a competition. We're having a photography competition. And the prize, 2 prizes going out, a Drinks with Kate T-shirt. We didn't do them commercially. I just got a hand. This is an extra large. So I've got one extra large and I've got a small or a medium. I can't remember which. So yes, get those cats in the photo, Shell. Best 2 photos wins a t-shirt. Kate at moorooducestate.com.au. You can send them through there, or you can send them through on my phone, 0413 349 934. I think you've all got my phone number now. All right. So, and that sounds delicious. Duck and mushrooms, fantastic. I was running late too, so it's all good. Craig, how does heavy rain affect times when you pick the grapes? We try and pick all of the grapes before the heavy rain comes, and we hope that the heavy rain doesn't come before the grapes are fully ripened. So basically, after the grapes kind of go past veraison, which is when they start changing colour and the sugar increases and the flavour increases and the acid starts to drop out, if we get a lot of rain at that time, then, and particularly just before we're going to pick the grapes, sorry, I'm a bit hot and sticky, so I keep trying to get myself sorted out. All right, I've stopped fiddling now. Yes, so close to picking time, we want dry, sunny weather, which is what we are currently experiencing here. Dry, sunny weather. It's a little bit too sunny, and it's a little bit humid for my taste. But anyway, because that will dehydrate the grapes a little bit, concentrate the flavours, a little bit less juice to skins. Not really an issue this year because we've got little tiny berries. I should have brought some berries in. Next week I'll bring some berries in. Little tiny berries, so a lot of skin to juice ratio already. So probably the red wines will be quite deep in colour this year and probably quite structured. The aromas and flavours are nice in the fruit, so hopefully that will translate into deliciously aromatic and flavoursome wine as well. But yeah, getting that balance right. But with these little tiny berries, they're also quite fragile. So if we get heavy rain now, any of the fruit that we haven't picked, and we've been picking like crazy this week, so there's not a lot of fruit left out there. We've picked the whole of the McIntyre vineyard apart from the Shiraz and the 10 Nebbiolo vines. We counted the Nebbiolo bunches, Craig. We've got 36 bunches of Nebbiolo out there, and we sampled 10 berries today, and it's still pretty high in acid, but the flavour's pretty good and the sugars are getting riper all the time. So the Nebbiolo appears this year again compared to last year. And for those of you who haven't got into the secret Nebbiolo conversations, at Moorooduc Estate we have 10 Nebbiolo vines. Everybody told us that Nebbiolo wouldn't work here. It was too cool, and we thought, let's just give it a crack. So we just planted 10 vines about 6 or 7 years ago now. We got our first crop last year. Second crop this year is looking good so far. If we get lots of rain now, that might be a problem, but if we get a little bit of rain, it won't be a problem at all. So yeah, just to finish my explanation. So this is the worst explanation I've given to anyone. You can tell that I'm a little bit brain dead from the heat and the wine making, but water, lots of water on the vines just before picking. The berries swell up, flavours are diluted. Worst case scenario, the berries split and you get a lot of disease pressure and a lot of disease. So it's very hard when you've got split berries to do anything other than pick fast and hope that the rot doesn't set in. James, we made a bottle and a half last year. So not really commercially viable at the moment, but if we come to an understanding that Nebbiolo will ripen successfly and interestingly, what I mean by interestingly is give us some interesting aromas and flavours. I know it is pretty funny. Then there's the potential for planting some more Nebbiolo in the old Cabernet / grafted Pinot block that we pulled out 2 years ago. So we've got about a hectare of land at the front of the property laying fallow at the moment that we're growing cover crops on, and we've just mowed the meadow and resown it in the last week. So hopefully we'll get some more cover crops growing. It's amazing out there. There were sunflowers, there were these enormous turnips that grew. It was really gorgeous, and lots of different wildflowers and stuff. So what's it called? It's really trendy breakfast cereal. No, my brain's gone now. But lots of seeds and things like that. Hello, Samantha. Lovely to see you. Yeah, so you never know. We were just talking about at lunchtime today that, you know, it does feel like, well, we've made some of our best Pinot Noir that we've ever made in the last 10 years, and it's been warmer, and we've been starting vintage and finishing vintage even sometimes in February for the last most years in the last 10 years, which originally made us terrified that we wouldn't be able to continue making good Pinot here. But as I say, we've made the best Pinot that we've ever made in the last 10 years. So far, the warmer temperatures and the changing climate has been a positive thing for Pinot Noir here. But if it keeps getting warmer, one day it won't be. So having some other things in the back burner, in the back pocket, is quite important, we think. So, and Nebbiolo is the one that our hearts are most aligned with, I think. Hello, Daryl and Sue. How are you? I haven't even put any wine in my glass yet. What are we doing? We're chatting about everything. I hope you guys have got some wine in your glass. I might who put their wine in the fridge? I put mine in the fridge for about half an hour. It's still, I would have liked it to be a tiny bit cooler, I think, because it's humid as well as hot here. It's still 30 degrees at 6 o'clock at night, which is just not on for March in the Mornington Peninsula. Anyway, Pinot Noir 2018. I did say in my email today that you can put it in a decanter, so I thought that we might just run through the whole decanting story again. A lot of people believe that Pinot Noir should never be decanted, and I think that never say never. I usually... Kay put hers in the fridge for about an hour and a half, pulled out 45 minutes before the start. Perfect. Jeff, you know that Craig's a Nebbiolo fan. You guys are going to have Barolo to celebrate end of WSET level 3s or something at some stage. 40 minutes. Perfect, Cotty. Yeah, I think mine could have done with maybe another 10 minutes, but we'll see. I'm going to pop it in the decanter just to show you how I do it. When you're decanting young Pinot like this, it's not about trying to get it off sediment. It's just about trying to get a little bit of air into it before you put it in the glass. I just think, what's the, oh yes, Craig, the biggest Nebbiolo fan. Yes, so I was part of that conversation too. All right, I'm going to concentrate on the wine. Wine in decanter. I do it still quite gently with Pinot Noir because you don't want to bash it around too much. It's not like a big Brunello or Cabernet or something that needs a lot of air. It's just about letting it breathe for a second. You know, when you come home from work and you're not used to wearing your pants with the waistband on them anymore, and you get home and you put your Trekkie decks on, it's much more comfortable immediately. This wine is much happier out of the bottle. Now it's in its decanter. That's all you have to do. You don't need to swirl it or swoosh it or anything. Plus, I don't want to warm it up too much yet, and then into your wine glass. Beautiful. That's a double decant. Right. Cheers, everyone. Pinot Noir on a hot summer's day. Okay, so for anyone who's kind of still worrying about the whole idea of putting Pinot Noir in the fridge, it is a beautiful colour, isn't it, James? No, it wouldn't be very good with the nut butter, Kay, but just stick with the bread to kind of and some water to just bring out the best in the Pinot, I reckon. Hello, Alison and Andrew. No worries. I hope you caught up. I'm just going to say it again. Nareem, a Nebbiolo fan too. Look, don't get your hopes too high, guys. There's not going to be any Moorooduc Estate Nebbiolo to taste or sell or buy for at least another 10 or 15 years, if ever. So we'll just have to make do with Pinot Noir for the time being, but it's something to look forward to when we're all a little bit older. You do, Paul and Roz, have to put it in the fridge up there. So really dry. Yes, Craig. Putting it in the fridge. So the ideal temperature to serve Pinot Noir is around 16 degrees centigrade. And I don't know about the room you're in, but the room I'm in is much warmer than 16 degrees at the moment. So just get it a bit cold. And then if it's too cold, and Craig, if yours is looking really dry, it might just be a little bit too cold, then you just want to warm it up a little bit with your hands. Give it a swirl. The warm air around will warm it up really quickly. And you get the beautiful aromas. Already there's the cherry, but there's also this kind of pan-fried duck breast kind of, or pigeon breast or quail or something. There's this beautiful kind of gamey, meaty kind of a smell coming straight off the nose, which I think is awesome. Makes it fantastic with duck or quail or pigeon, but also really great with mushroom because it's got that earthy forest floor kind of character. It brings out the sort of the savoury flavours of the mushroom, and the mushroom brings out the lovely cherry fruit as well as those forest floor savoury characters in the wine. I love that. It's almost it's really kind of, it's very like sort of a little bit of quail breast or something. It's quite meaty. Hang on, Craig. Yes, really good tannins, but having it colder will accentuate those tannins. So it's one of those little games that we play as wine tasters. There is quite a bit of tannin, but there's lovely, luscious fruit there as well. And I think probably just serving it a little bit cooler, particularly if you're not used to drinking Pinot slightly chilled, and a lot of people aren't. But I think that, on a summer's day, drinking Pinot at room temperature, often it gets quite soupy and just not very refreshing, not very pleasant. Whereas this has kind of got a really refreshing kind of crunchiness to it. Kay, I reckon beef Wellington would be fantastic with this wine. Thank you, Zach and Jack. I think it punches above its weight as well. And it's one of the reasons that, we have tasted this together before, but it's one of those ones that I do like to come back to periodically and just go, hey, remember the Pinot, the Estate Pinot, just a little old Estate Pinot. It's not a single vineyard. It's not museum stock. It's just current release, single vineyard Pinot. And it's got lots of complexity and depth to it, and really a fabulous food wine, but a beautiful wine to drink, just tasting together as well. Fantastic with homemade beetroot dip, Sam. I agree. I think, talking about all of the sort of things that go really well with Pinot, I think it's really interesting. Has anyone done the bruschettas that I suggested? So I suggested doing a mushroom bruschetta or bruschetta, and even Italians can't agree whether it's pronounced bruschetta or bruschetta or bruschetta. Anyway, something on toast with lots of olive oil and salt and pepper on it. One with mushrooms that you've cooked off, and one with tomatoes that you haven't cooked off but just chopped up and liberally doused with olive oil and salt and pepper. I think it's a really interesting experiment if you have done it. And if you haven't done it, it's okay. The thing is that the mushroom bruschetta will be beautiful with the wine. The tomato bruschetta will be hard work, I think. So there's another one of those ones last week when I sort of suggested that people put chili sauce on everything, and then I didn't say that maybe keep some things without chili sauce because it might not work. And if you've got a bit of chili and you want to play around with, pushing the boundaries a bit, a little bit of chili on your mushrooms might be nice. This wine might struggle with it, but it might actually handle it quite well. Shell, bit of vegan duck, excellent, good. That's good. I do think that the fat in duck, whether it be meat duck or vegan duck, does bring out the perfume of the wine, which is really lovely. Oh, good on you, Cotty. No, caramelized balsamic and mozzarella would probably be even harder work with this wine. And the mushroom bruschetta is just such a classic, and lots of garlic. This wine really copes with garlic, loves garlic actually. Gougères out of the oven, how fantastic. Oh, good on you guys. Well, it was Pancake Tuesday, Sam, on Tuesday, so gougères turning into pancakes just a couple of days late. And Anne, I realised right at the end of last week's session that you'd made a comment right at the beginning that you were talking to your mum about how the colour gets into the Pinot Gris on skins, and I hadn't responded to it. And in fact, it's completely relevant to the discussion today because, well, James, the 18 Pinot is the current release of Pinot Noir from Moorooduc Estate. And I'll come back to that in a minute, but I'm going to talk to Anne's comment from last week that relates perfectly back to the Pinot Noir, because the Pinot Noir and the why are you salivating? Okay, what's Jeff got? Oily anchovies and hard cheeks, fantastic. And I think Michael's having Gruyere black grapes, fantastic. And Cotty, if you had that tomato bruschetta with caramelized balsamic and mozzarella with the Pinot Gris on skins, it would be divine, absolutely to die for. It would be fabulous. So Pinot Gris on skins, Pinot Noir made in exactly the same way, and it's really cool because nobody ever says how do you get the colour in Pinot Noir, how do you get the colour in the Pinot Gris on skins? And basically we make them exactly the same way. So we put them through the destemmer, and we put the fruit goes into an open vat fermenter. We leave that, cover it with carbon dioxide, leave it to start fermenting its own time. It usually takes sort of 3 to 6 days before it starts fermenting. The ferments are starting quite fast this year because of the weather. And then once the ferment started and we've got the juice and the skin and the pips all together, then we'll pump it over, which basically you get a pump and you put a hose down the bottom and a hose on top of it, and you pump it up from the bottom and spray the wine back down on top of the skins on the top. And that gets some oxygen into the system, which is really good for the yeast's health. Hello, Jeff and Sue. Lovely to see you. And it also starts the work of with the wine in contact with the skins. That starts pulling the colour and the tannin out of the skins. Then we stir it, or plunge it is a more technical word for it. The French word for it is pigeage. We use a metal plunging implement. Some people use their feet, but in our fermenters it's a bit deep. You'd kind of drown. So we plunge it twice a day to stir those skins up with the wine. And it's like when you make a cup of tea and you put your tea bag in and you want to get it ready to go quicker, and you stir the tea bag around in the water. The more you stir it around, the more colour and tannin and flavour you extract from the tea bag. In the same way, the more you stir the skins into the juice while it's fermenting, the more colour and tannin and flavour you extract from the skins. And so that's how we get the colour and the flavour and the tannins into both the wine last week and this week. Then it's just a case of pressing it off and putting it in barrel and letting it do its thing for 11 months, and then we bottle it, and then we're ready to release a few years later. Easy. Yes, Craig, all of our wines are wild yeast. So we've been making all of our wines using natural yeast or wild yeast or indigenous yeast. It's all the same thing. It means that we're not buying yeast from a laboratory to put into the wine. We're just relying on the yeast that comes in from the vineyard and the yeast that exists in the winery already to do its job of fermenting the wine. It takes a little bit longer for that yeast to build up its strength and its numbers, which is why we cool the juice down and let it kind of sit for a few days. And when it's ready to get started, it'll get started in its own time. Craig, you saw a video of another winery making wine. It looked like they were making bread. Oh, because they were adding yeast to the wine. Most people do. There's a lot of people who play around with whole yeast ferments, but a lot of people buy yeast in because the theory is, why would you just rely on indigenous yeast when you can import the Olympic athletes of yeast who will do the job exactly in the time frame that you want them to do it, strongly, fast, well, with no side effects. You're totally under control of things, and it's all very regimented. We like the kind of stop-start, slow wild yeast action because it gives us more complexity, we believe, and more depth to the wine. So it's one of the reasons that we use wild yeast. It's also, once you kind of have faith that the yeast is going to do its job, it's actually a really lovely, easy way to make wine, because you're not kind of going, is it time to add the yeast? Is it, oh, add the yeast, oh, now it's fermenting. It's just like, okay, well, are you ready? We'll look at it every day, and once it starts fermenting, then we move on to the next day. It feels more like kind of letting the wine do things in its own time. I know that sounds a little bit whimsical, but we are a little bit whimsical at Moorooduc. There's lots of questions that I'm not answering. So James, Craig, I'll come back to how wild yeast could go wrong, because that's a very good question. James, compared to previous vintages, the 18 Pinot Noir is very pure fruited. It's very, it's a lot of red fruit, because it was a lovely sort of even, not too hot vintage. We didn't have any sort of, we had good fruit. We had good vintage size as well as quality of fruit, and it all kind of ripened slowly and regularly, and it was a really lovely vintage to make wine. So very pure fruited, very elegant, but lots of flavour, really good structure, beautiful balance. 17 was much more savoury in its fruit expression. 16 was a slightly warmer year, so kind of a bit more like a big hug of a wine, a much more vibrant, sort of forward, rich fruit and slightly softer structure. This wine's sort of somewhere in between. It's got the brightness of fruit, but it's more red fruit than dark fruit. But it's also got some of the structure that we saw in 17 without the... 17 was a bit more austere. So they're interesting vintages to line up together. 19 and 20, well, we'll wait and see. If you've got various vintages of Pinot in your cellar from us, it's always, if you can find a few friends who are interested as well, it is really interesting to open up a few different vintages and taste them through. We've been very bad at holding on to estate level wine, which ages very well, but we don't have enough space in our museum to hold on to estate level wine as well as the single vineyard wines. And because the single vineyard wines are kind of a little bit more esoteric and a bit more geeky, they're the ones that we've kept back a few dozen bottles of each year. So over the year, and there will be, I know I keep saying this every week, but I reckon I'm going to be putting the pressure on Jeff to have them on the website, if they're not already on the website. The dates for events this year out on the website next week. We're going to be doing some events because it is our 40th anniversary of buying this property and starting Moorooduc Estate. So I think it's a worthy year to start doing some pretty cool tastings. Craig, your friends are only drinks with Kate. Well, you have to come down here and do a little vertical tasting with your drinks with Kate friends. Wild yeast. How could wild yeast go wrong? And Cotty also wants to know, does wild yeast always occur? Does it always interact with the grape juice? So that was a big thing that people were worried about. Cotty, thanks, Jeff. It's one of the things that people were really worried about when people started experimenting with wild ferments here in Australia back in the late 80s, early 90s. And Dad was one of the first people who played around with wild ferments. Dad started in the early mid 90s, something like that. And people would say to him, I remember James Halliday saying to him, "Aren't you worried that things will go horribly wrong?" And Dad's like, "Well, no, we're finding actually that it's not as risky as everyone thinks it is, and the yeasts are there, and they exist not only in the vineyard, but they exist in the winery as well." And it's probably residue from previous years fermentation. So they're not all kind of, indigenous yeast that only ever came from here, because once upon a time we did buy in yeast for inoculation, but they've made homes and kind of developed their own personal style in our winery. And we're not particularly worried about what strains of yeast, as long as we don't get any nasty ones. And so yes, Cotty, so far, wild ferments, wild yeasts are always there. They're everywhere in the world. They're in the air everywhere. It's how you can make sourdough bread. It's how you can it's why fruit and fruit juice goes off on the bench. A lot of commercial fruit juice will have a lot of sulfur in it to stop it from oxidizing and from fermenting, but things will ferment naturally if you give them half a chance. And yes, Michael, it is absolutely part of the terroir. Oh, you've lost me, Jeff. I think Gangs of New York coming soon. Or are we thinking Gangs of New York like the yeast all being there? I haven't seen the movie, so I've missed the reference. Sorry. But wild yeast could go wrong. Wild yeast could go wrong because there are some yeasts out there that we don't want to be involved in the ferment, and the most famous one of those is Brettanomyces. Brettanomyces is a wild yeast. It hangs out places that it wants to be. It loves being in breweries, which is why a lot of people don't want to have a brewery if they've got a winery. They don't want a brewery nearby. But the bad yeasts can give you some nasty aromas and nasty smells. So that's the first thing that could go wrong. You could have some bad yeast involved. Luckily for us, the yeasts that we don't want are very sensitive to sulfur dioxide, and the yeasts that we do want are a bit more robust and can handle a bit of a sulfur dioxide dose. So when the fruit comes in from the vineyard, the first thing we do is we give it a little dose of sulfur dioxide to knock out any dodgy strains, and to give the good guys a chance to kind of grow up and have some space, which is pretty good. A little bit of Brett never hurt anyone, Michael, but no wine that has Brett would not be better without Brett, I would argue. But we don't need to have that. We don't have to have that argument today. There's a lot of people who quite like a bit of Brettanomyces in their wine. The problem is that it's hard to, if you don't understand how to control it, and you don't control it properly, then it will get out of control, and then all you can smell is the Brettanomyces. It's not that big a call, Michael. Craig, I think you're thinking about cork taint for cardboard, but Brettanomyces smells more like Band-Aids, horse's hooves, sweaty saddle, barnyard, at very low levels, sort of earthiness. I'm not really particularly worried about a little bit of Brett in wines that I drink that somebody else has made. I just don't really want to see it in my wine. So that's sort of where we sit at Moorooduc. There's a lot of Australian winemakers who are completely allergic to it. I'm not one of those people, but I'd prefer not to see it in my wine. And the other problem with Brettanomyces is that oh, thank you, Jeff. I understand now. The big problem with Brettanomyces is once it's in your winery, you can't get rid of it. And if you're not aware of it, then it will grow and build over the years. And so it will affect your wine more and more. And then it can be a problem. So anyway, moving on from that conversation, because we've given Brett far too much airtime already. The other reason that people are worried about wild ferments is that they do smell a bit weird when they start. You get quite a lot of, you get a bit of acetone kind of acetaldehyde kind of aromas coming off wild ferments when they start. And a lot of winemakers who haven't had experience with wild ferments before panic at that stage and run out and buy some yeast and add some yeast. And if you add some yeast and kind of to push the ferment through, then you're much more likely to end up with wine that has the acetic acid in the finished product. Whereas if you just kind of have faith in the ferments and just let it do its thing, they work through the wine works through it, and that character dissipates as the ferment goes on. So it's one of those things that you just need to you need to have some experience with them, or you need to be brave. See what happens. So wild ferments we love, and we've been doing them for nearly 20 years now. So I'm not sure if, girls, did you work out whether we're Ruby or, so it's 40 year anniversary is Ruby is 40 years. I think someone else suggested Pearl, but anyway, I like rubies and pearls, so I'm pretty happy with either. Leonardo in their wine. No, that's right. Does anyone else? Yeah, lots of people do now, Craig. It's become for small Ruby apparently is. Yeah, exactly. Pinot Noir coloured wine for the 40th anniversary. Perfect. In the early days, people were very nervous about wild ferments and used to come and talk to Dad about them quite a lot and were quite worried about them. But a lot of people have started using them now to great effect. So a lot of people don't even talk about them. We talk about them probably less than we used to, except for when I'm talking to you guys because you're interested. Some people just kind of just want the wine to be delicious. They don't really care why. And we can do that too. But yeah, there's quite a lot of people playing around with wild ferments now. Yes, Craig, I should buy myself a big ruby ring. Exactly. Maybe, I'm not sure if I can afford it. I might buy myself another bottle of Pinot Noir. At least we're not going to plant any ruby Cabernet, so you can be relieved about that. This wine's opening up so beautifully. More of the cherry fruit and sort of some crunchy, almost red currant kind of tangy character coming through now, as well as that earthiness. And it's, the tannins are looking pretty firm at the moment, Craig. The other thing that's interesting, I don't know if you can remember back to last time we tasted this wine, but when we tasted it, I think it was like 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 months ago now, it looked much softer and fresher and brighter, and the tannins were softer as well. And Pinot goes through this weird kind of evolution where at about this age, so it's a 2018 now, it's drinking well now, but if you're going to buy it to put it in your cellar, then you probably would want to leave it in the cellar for maybe another 3 or 4 or 5 years, because it's now going through the evolutionary stage that the fruit's kind of just kind of going to sleep a little bit, the fruit expression, and the tannins and the savouriness and the structures kind of coming up. And then in, say, 3 years' time, let's say, it's not always precise, but 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time, then what will have happened is that fruit will have gone through a caterpillar to butterfly-like transformation, and you'll get a lot more complexity, and the tannins will be sort of a bit softer in relation to the fruit, which will be a bit more forward again, but there'll be more savoury and there'll be more richness. It's a really interesting thing that Pinot Noir does, that we really, it's an adolescent, Alison. It's going through a bit of an awkward stage. Still nice. We still love it. We forgive it, but and we're very happy to give it a bit of a hug and say you're all right. But if you've got time to wait and you've got a decent cellar to put it in, I highly recommend you at least grab a few bottles. Yes, Michael. I think it'll probably be going into its seriously spotty non-verbal phase in about a year and a half. So either buy it and drink it now, or buy it and put it in the cellar and just let it get through its difficult phase and have a look at it again in 2 or 3 years' time. I'll certainly I reckon we should definitely, I'm just thinking, will we be doing Drinks with Kate in 5 years' time, 3 years' time? I'll put some of this aside so that we can get together again and have a little taste of it in at least 3 years' time. Oh, the Bourgogne opposite the Bourgogne in November. Absolutely, Kay. Thank you for being my diarist. That's fantastic. And I think next to the Bourgogne, because the Bourgogne was quite savoury and structured, this wine probably would have looked more more floral and more fruity and more forward as a result because of what we were comparing and contrasting it with. Yeah. Oh, very good. Well, team, is that making Thursday night? Is that making this week feel a little bit better? Our little chat and our little sip. It certainly made my Thursday night and my week feel. I feel like I've just had time to breathe all of a sudden. I can talk again. Kieran in Bahrain mid-flight. Hi, Kieran. Missing you. I think exciting times now because Michael, are you really demolishing things? That yeah, I guess once you've had a flood through, then really all you can do is start again, right? I'm glad that you were able to come and join us. It's been a delight again. Before you disappear, not at your place. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, before you disappear again, back into your poor neighbours. That's awful. Yeah. Well, my heart goes out to all of those who are experiencing those awful floods and that awful rain. It's incredible, and there's lots of crappy stuff going on in the world. So it's nice to be able to just sit down and talk about Pinot Noir for half an hour or so, and forget about all the other stuff. So thank you for allowing us to do that. You guys coming along, I'd feel a little bit self-indulgent just doing it if I didn't have you guys to sort of keep me company. So next week we're doing the Devil Bean Creek Pinot Gris, I believe, which will be a lovely little treat. That wine has just gone to Norway to see if the Norwegians would like to list it on their state-run wine cellar. So that could be exciting. It might become a little rarer than it is at the moment if Norway decide to pick some of it up. But we're going to be drinking it next week, which will be lovely. I will rack my brains to think of something interesting food and wine-wise. But sometimes I think it's nice just to kind of concentrate on the wine and let you guys do whatever you want to do food-wise. Don't forget, we have a T-shirt competition happening today. Do they do any wines? Are you talking about in Ukraine, Craig, or in Brisbane? Ukraine, the Ukrainians actually do have vineyards and make wine. I don't know a lot about them, but we might have a bit of a chat about that next week because I reckon they might make some pretty awesome Pinot Gris over there as well as some other things. So I'll do a bit of research. Norway. Yes, no, Norway buys wine. Sorry, Craig. My brain at the moment, I'll say something, it falls out the next minute. So just like all over the place. In Norway, they don't grow and make wine traditionally in Norway, although I do know of someone who's got a little backyard vineyard in Sweden. I know that's not Norway, but similar sort of geography. Thank you, Craig. So they don't really make wine there. In fact, that's a really interesting thing. Greenland now, for the first time ever, they're planting vineyards in Greenland because there's been enough sort of snow melt and warmth to make it potentially a good place to grow grapes. But I don't believe in Norway they do. It's very much like other parts of that part of the world that it's all wine sales are government controlled. So I have a contact over there who does the buying for one of the big groups, but you have to put the wine up for tender and they have to taste it and decide whether it's the one that they want to put on, or I don't know how many they put on at a time. So we've never tried to crack that market before. I'm, gently hopeful, but it's not really a huge a huge deal for us. But yes, it will be expensive. I reckon, Alison, it will be maybe 120. I'm not sure. I'll find out. If we get picked up, it'll be a good excuse for me to go to Norway and visit, and and then I'll be able to report back. In fact, I might be able to do a Drinks with Kate from Norway later this year. Who knows? Who knows? Yes, Peter and Karen, I think there is a real problem in the world if Greenland can grow wine. It's we make light of it, but it is slightly nerve-wracking. Anywho, Pinot Gris, Devil Bean Creek next week. And we will be putting out an email to the general mailing list, of which you guys are part of which you guys are part. Very bad English, but at least yes, anyway. With Drinks with Kate Box 2 for 2022. I've pulled a few things together. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a bit different. We have at least one guest wine. We will have a week's break in between. I'm thinking, so the classic cocktail that I love and that my grandfather used to make for my parents when we used to go and visit them in Launceston, and that I would like to share with you guys, is an old-fashioned. So I'm thinking, I know that there's been requests for grappa, and there's been mezcal is definitely not on the back burner. Kevin and Emily, I haven't seen you pop up today, so maybe you're not on the tasting today. But anyway, we will do everything else as well. But I'm thinking that it might be quite fun too. I've been rewatching a little bit of Mad Men recently, and it always makes me want to make an old fashioned. So I think probably after we've done our Pinot Gris, Devil Bean Creek Pinot Gris, and then there's a Pinot Noir of old fashioned doesn't have to get ugly, Craig. I can teach you how to make it old fashioned and still be nice. Got a few tricks up my sleeve. But yes, the way that the guys in Mad Men drank an old fashioned could get very, very ugly. And the other Mad Men drink that inspired me, that I don't visit too often, but every now and again, is the Gibston martini, which is a martini with pickled onions in it, little mini pickled onions in it, which is, if you haven't tried it and you like a pickled onion, it is the bomb. It's awesome. Anyway, enough about cocktails. We've got time for that another day. I'm going to say fare thee well. It's been ace. I'll see you all again. Well, some of you, all of you, more of you, less of you, who knows, next week. Lovely to see you all again, and see you next week. Cheers. I've run out of things to say. Don't forget to send me your photos to win a t-shirt. Yay! Love you all. Bye.